The night Alessandro Zanetti chose his date for his brother's wedding, he didn't pick a model, an influencer, or the daughter of a politician. He walked into his own kitchen and pointed at the maid. Grace Miller froze with a glass in her hand, unsure if she had heard him correctly. Every muscle in her body locked. Every thought disappeared. Alessandro Zanetti never joked. He never smiled, and he never repeated himself. The mansion was silent except for the distant sound of security walking through the halls. It was almost midnight, and Grace was finishing her last shift, trying to stay unnoticed the way she always did. She liked blending into the background. She liked being invisible, but tonight, invisibility was impossible. Alessandro stood in the doorway, still wearing the black shirt and suit pants from a meeting that had gone too late. His sleeves were rolled up, revealing strong forearms and a silver watch that probably cost more than her entire life. His hair was slightly messy, his jaw tense, and his eyes were fixed on her with a strange intensity she had never seen on his face. "Sir?" Grace whispered, because her voice simply wouldn't rise. He studied her as if making a decision that could not be undone. "You," he repeated. "You're coming with me to my brother's wedding." Her throat tightened. She had been cleaning the counters, her hair tied in a simple ponytail, her uniform wrinkled from long hours, hands smelling faintly of lemon detergent. She should not even be in the same room with him, much less in the middle of whatever this was. She placed the glass on the counter carefully, afraid her hands might shake. "I think you're mistaken, Mr. Zanetti. I'm just the maid." Ethan Blake, Alessandro's right-hand man, was standing behind him, arms crossed, eyebrows raised. Even he looked shocked. Alessandro stepped fully into the kitchen, closing the distance. "I am not mistaken." Grace swallowed hard. "Why me?" His gaze swept over her slowly, not in a flirtatious way, but in a calculating one. She felt exposed, even though she still wore her simple uniform and tired shoes. "Every woman who wants to be on my arm," he said, "has an agenda." She blinked. "I don't understand." "You don't want anything from me," he answered. "Not money, not power, not my name." His voice softened for a brief second. "You're the only person in this house who looks me in the eye without pretending." Grace's heart hammered. She had never heard him speak this openly. She wasn't even sure he had a heart until now. But before she could think of a response, a delicate older woman walked into the kitchen, Mrs. Zanetti, Alessandro's aunt. She stopped immediately when she saw them. "Alessandro," she said carefully, "please tell me you chose a suitable date for the wedding." "We cannot have people talking." He didn't look away from Grace. "I chose her." Mrs. Zanetti followed his gaze, saw Grace, and nearly dropped the tray in her hands. "The maid?" she whispered, her voice full of disbelief. "You're taking the maid." Ethan coughed into his hand to hide a laugh. Grace wanted to disappear into the floor. Alessandro nodded once, firm and final. "Yes, Grace Miller will accompany me." "But she's staff," his aunt insisted. "And the people attending the wedding are—" He cut her off. "I don't care what they are." Grace felt heat rising in her cheeks, embarrassment mixing with fear. She didn't belong in his world. She didn't belong in that conversation. Mrs. Zanetti tried again. "Alessandro, you cannot be serious. Your date must reflect your status. You are the head of this family. And this is my choice." His voice carried a finality that ended the discussion immediately. "Mrs." Zanetti pressed her lips together and left the kitchen, visibly upset. Grace took a shaky breath. "Mr. Zanetti, I really don't think—" "You're going," he said, lowering his voice, "unless you're refusing." Her breath stopped. Refusing him? Refusing the most feared man in the city? Refusing a man who could destroy lives with a single word? She could barely force her lips to move. "I'm not refusing. I'm not sure why you want me there." He took one step closer. "You make people underestimate you," he said. "That's an advantage. And tonight reminded me that I want someone beside me who doesn't lie to my face." She felt something heavy and warm twist inside her chest. No one had ever described her as someone worth choosing, not once in her entire life. Grace looked down at the floor, searching for air. I've never been to a wedding like yours. I don't know how to act around people like that. I don't have the right dress or... That will be handled, he interrupted. You won't go in your uniform. She nodded slowly, still confused, still overwhelmed. Ethan stepped forward. Boss, are you sure? She'll be surrounded by press, politicians, business giants. I said my decision is final. Grace's stomach dropped. This felt wrong, dangerous even. Being close to Alessandro Zanetti could put anyone in danger, especially someone like her, who carried secrets she barely understood herself. She rubbed her fingers together nervously. Why me, Alessandro? It was the first time she had ever said his first name. His eyes flickered with something unreadable. He leaned in slightly, his voice low and controlled. Because every other woman sees a throne. You're the only one who sees the man sitting on it. She felt that sentence deep inside her bones. Ethan cleared his throat. Grace, you should probably get some rest. Tomorrow will be intense. Tomorrow. The wedding. Walking beside the most feared mafia boss in the country, Grace wasn't sure if she wanted to cry or run or hide. Alessandro turned away from her as if the topic was settled forever. Be ready at 7. A driver will pick you up. And Grace? She looked up quickly. When you walk into that wedding on my arm, he said, eyes sharp and serious. You're under my protection, all night. Everyone will know that. Her breath trembled. Okay. He nodded once more and left the kitchen with Ethan behind him. The moment the door closed, Grace's legs gave out. She sat at the small staff table and pressed a hand to her shaking chest. Protection. His world. His arm. She didn't fully understand what that meant, but she understood enough to be afraid. Breathing unevenly, she walked to the back hallway where lockers were kept. She opened hers quickly and pulled out a small photo she kept hidden behind her uniform. A photo of a different life, a different city, a different version of herself. She stared at it with wide, tense eyes. If someone recognized her at that wedding, if someone remembered what happened, if anyone connected her to the man she once ran from, everything could fall apart. She closed the locker with trembling fingers. Tomorrow she would walk into a world where she absolutely did not belong. Tomorrow every eye in that room would be on her. And she had no idea what Alessandro Zanetti had just dragged her into. But one question echoed through her mind as she finally headed toward her small bedroom. What exactly did being under his protection mean? And what price would she have to pay? Grace barely slept. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw Alessandro standing in the kitchen doorway, his voice echoing in her head. When you walk into that wedding on my arm, you're under my protection. She didn't understand his world. She didn't understand his reasons, but she understood one thing. There was no way back. By 6 in the morning, she was standing in front of the small mirror of the staff bathroom, still in her uniform, hair tied up, dark circles under her eyes. Nothing had changed on the outside. But inside, everything felt different. What kind of woman becomes the date of a mafia boss overnight? Certainly not her. But Alessandro didn't ask. He decided. At 7 sharp, the house shook with movement. Security walked faster. Staff whispered. A black SUV waited outside the staff entrance, not the main one. Grace stepped out slowly, heart pounding. Ethan Blake stood beside the SUV, checking his watch. You're late by 2 minutes, he said, but without anger. He opened the door. Get in. She sat quietly in the back seat as the car pulled away from the mansion. The city flashed by the windows, cold morning light reflecting on the glass buildings. Where are we going? Grace asked. To prepare you, Ethan replied simply. Boss wants everything perfect. Perfect. Perfect for Alessandro Zanetti's standards was terrifying. The SUV stopped in front of an upscale penthouse building downtown. Grace hesitated before stepping out. She felt completely out of place, uniform old, sneakers worn, hair messy from the wind. Inside the elevator, Ethan pressed the top floor. You nervous? He asked. Grace nodded. He sighed. Just follow the instructions. Don't overthink it. And don't fight it. The boss knows what he's doing. She wasn't sure if that made her feel safer or more afraid. The elevator opened to a huge penthouse filled with natural light, polished floors, ivory sofas, and windows overlooking the city. A woman in her 40s, stylish and confident, walked toward Grace. "You must be Grace," she said with a warm smile. "I'm Elena. Alessandro called me personally. We're going to take good care of you today." Grace wanted to hide under a table. Elena clapped her hands. "Let's get started." Two assistants appeared and guided Grace to a large dressing room. She tried to protest. "I'm just—" Elena stopped her gently. "I know who you are, and I know what's happening tonight. Listen to me, Grace. You're not just anything. Not for tonight." Grace swallowed hard. "But I don't belong in places like this." Elena stepped closer, lifting Grace's chin with kind fingers. "Every woman belongs where she is respected. And Alessandro Zanetti clearly respects you." Grace wasn't sure if respect was the right word, but she didn't argue. The first step was the hair. They undid her ponytail and let her hair fall. Grace didn't recognize the weight of it. She had forgotten she even had long hair. Elena's fingers moved carefully through it, applying treatments, brushing, curling. Grace watched the transformation slowly happen. "You have beautiful hair," Elena said. "You should wear it down more often." Grace looked at herself in the mirror. It didn't feel like her. Not yet. Next came makeup. Soft tones, eyes highlighted, skin illuminated. A natural glow she never had the chance to see before. Grace stared at her reflection, almost frightened by the new face looking back. But then Elena stepped aside and revealed the dress. A long, stunning red gown hanging on a golden rack. Grace's breath vanished. I can't wear that," she whispered. Elena smiled. "Oh yes, you can. Alessandro picked the color himself." Grace's stomach twisted. "He picked it? He said he wanted you to be seen." Grace blinked, confused. Seen? By who? Why? Elena helped her step into the dress. As the fabric slid over Grace's skin, she felt the world tilt. The back dipped elegantly, the waist hugged her softly, the skirt fell in a smooth, flawless line. It was bold, it was beautiful. It was everything Grace never dared to be. When the zipper closed, she almost didn't recognize the woman in the mirror. A shy knock came at the door. "Ethan." "Elena? Is she red?" He froze mid-sentence. His eyes widened slightly. For the first time since she met him, Ethan was speechless. Elena smirked. "I'll take that as approval." Ethan cleared his throat. "Yes, that will work." Grace felt a wave of embarrassment. "Is it too much?" Ethan shook his head. "For any other woman? Maybe. For walking next to Alessandro? It's exactly right." They rode the elevator down again. Grace couldn't stop touching the fabric, as if afraid it would disappear. Outside, another SUV waited. But this time, Alessandro stepped out as soon as the car arrived. Black suit, white shirt, tie perfectly tied, hair styled, eyes sharp, cold, unreadable. He was intimidating on any normal day, but today he looked untouchable. Grace froze. Alessandro walked toward her slowly, his eyes never leaving hers. For a moment, she forgot how to breathe. Ethan opened the back door automatically, but Alessandro didn't move. He stood in front of Grace, expression completely unreadable. When he finally spoke, his voice was lower than she expected. "Turn around." Grace hesitated, heat rising to her cheeks, but she obeyed. She turned slowly, letting him take in the dress. When she faced him again, his jaw flexed. He stepped closer, too close, and fixed a strand of her hair behind her ear with a slow, deliberate touch. "You look—" He paused, eyes lingering on the dress, then on her face. Grace couldn't look away. She wasn't sure she could stand. "Perfect." The word made her heart race uncontrollably. Alessandro held out his hand. Not a command, an invitation. "Ready?" "No," she admitted in a whisper. He smirked faintly, the closest she had seen to a smile. "Good. I don't trust people who walk into danger without fear." She swallowed. Is it really danger? His eyes locked onto hers. Everything in my world is danger. A chill spread through her body. He guided her into the SUV, his hand resting at the small of her back. The simple touch made her knees weaken. Inside the car, their shoulders almost touched. The tension was so thick she could feel it in the air. Grace looked at her hands to hide her shaking. Why red? She asked softly. It had been bothering her since she saw the dress. Alessandro turned his head toward her, his eyes burning in the dim light. Because red draws eyes, he said bluntly. And tonight, no one will look at anyone else. Her heart skipped. He leaned closer, voice calm but dangerous. And if they look at you too long, they will look away as soon as they see me. Grace inhaled sharply. The car drove through the city, approaching the luxurious hotel where Mark's wedding would take place. The closer they got, the more anxious Grace felt. Alessandro extended his hand again, palm up. Grace. She looked at it, then at him. You walk in with me, he said. You stay on my arm. You do not talk to anyone alone. You do not leave my side. His voice softened just a little. I will not let anything happen to you tonight. Her throat tightened. Why? A long silence. His jaw clenched. His eyes flickered. Finally, he said, Because I chose you. The car stopped. Cameras flashed outside. Guests turned their heads. People whispered at the sight of the black SUV arriving. Alessandro offered his hand once more. Grace. She took it. He stepped out first, tall, powerful, commanding. Then he helped her out. As her red dress touched the ground and she straightened herself beside him, the entire front entrance of the hotel went silent. Whispers erupted instantly. Who is she? That dress. Is that the maid? Alessandro Zanetti brought a woman. Alessandro placed his hand on the small of her back, guiding her through the stunned crowd with confidence, possession, and a strange hint of pride. Grace could hardly breathe. She was just a maid yesterday. But tonight she was the woman walking on the arm of the most dangerous man in the city. And as they crossed the golden doors of the hotel, one thought echoed in her mind, louder than fear. What will this night turn me into? The moment Alessandro and Grace stepped through the golden doors of the hotel, the entire lobby fell silent. A long carpet stretched across the floor. Crystal chandeliers hung from above. Security guards in black stood along the walls. Guests in expensive suits and glittering gowns turned toward the entrance, and every single one of them stared at her. Grace felt exposed, almost fragile, wrapped in the red gown that clung to her body in ways she wasn't used to. Her heartbeat thumped so hard she felt it in her fingertips, but Alessandro's hand remained firm on the small of her back, guiding her with confidence that cut through the noise. He didn't rush. He didn't look embarrassed. He didn't hide her. He walked proudly beside her. A man in a navy suit leaned toward his date and whispered, not quietly enough, "Is that the maid from the Zanetti mansion?" Grace tried to look forward, pretending she didn't hear, but Alessandro slowed his pace just enough to glance at the man. One look, cold, sharp, final. The man instantly straightened in fear and looked away. "Don't listen to them," Alessandro murmured near her ear. "I'm trying," she whispered. Her voice cracked. "You're doing fine." Fine. She felt like passing out. They reached the entrance of the ballroom. From inside, the sound of soft music and distant laughter echoed. Alessandro nodded to the guard at the door, who immediately opened it. The ballroom was enormous. Rows of tables with white linens and gold centerpieces, waiters passing with trays of champagne, a flower arch framing the dance floor. Hundreds of guests, politicians, business owners, socialites, allies, and enemies, turned their heads toward them. Grace felt their judgment like heat on her skin. But Alessandro didn't flinch. He walked slower, intentionally, making everyone look. His presence filled the room like a storm. Grace could hear people whispering behind their hands. Who is she? A date? She must be someone important. No, that's the maid. The maid. What is he thinking? He brought her here? Is this a joke? A few phones lifted discreetly to take pictures. Grace shifted uncomfortably. Alessandro's hand slid from her back to her waist, pulling her closer. Eyes up, he said softly. Don't shrink yourself in front of them. I'm not trying to, she whispered. Yes, you are. He leaned slightly closer. Stand tall. Her chest tightened with nerves, but she forced herself to raise her chin a little. Alessandro noticed and nodded, approving. They continued walking until the groom, Mark Zanetti, spotted them. Mark broke into a wide grin. Ale, he called out, walking toward them with open arms. Alessandro released Grace only enough to shake his brother's hand and pull him into a quick embrace. Mark then stepped back and looked at Grace. He froze. Oh my God, he breathed. Is this who I think it is? Grace blushed. Hi. Mark blinked. Grace? From the mansion? She nodded, embarrassed. Mark shot his brother a look full of mischief. You really know how to shock a room, huh? Alessandro ignored him. Mark shook Grace's hand warmly. You look beautiful tonight. Grace hesitated. Thank you. This is all very overwhelming. Oh, trust me, Mark said with a laugh. Everything about my family is overwhelming. A woman in a silver gown approached. Victoria Reed, the bride. She smiled softly at Grace. You look lovely, she said sincerely. I'm so glad you came. Grace felt her shoulders relax just a little. At least someone here wasn't judging her. Mark whispered to Grace, Don't pay attention to anyone staring. They're scared of him, not you. Grace wanted to believe him. Before she could respond, a woman in a dark green dress walked by slowly, eyes narrowed. Is this really your date, Alessandro? She asked with a fake smile. She's different. Alessandro didn't even turn his head. She's exactly who I chose, he said, and that's all anyone needs to know. The woman swallowed her words and quickly disappeared into the crowd. Grace exhaled shakily. Alessandro leaned down. You're doing better than half the people here. Am I? She whispered. Yes, he said, guiding her further inside. You're with me. That alone terrifies them. The night unfolded like a test she wasn't prepared for. Wherever they walked, the crowd split in two, unsure whether to greet Alessandro or avoid him. Some men tried to impress him with business talk. Some women tried to flirt with him. But Alessandro barely acknowledged anyone. His focus kept drifting back to Grace. He scanned the room constantly, not for gossip or admiration, but for danger, and Grace could feel it. At one point, Alessandro stepped away briefly to speak to Mark. Grace stood near one of the tables trying to breathe normally, her hands shaking slightly. A middle-aged couple approached her. So, the woman said, sipping champagne, how long have you and Alessandro been involved? Grace choked on her own breath. Oh, we're not, I don't. The man laughed, amused by her panic. Don't worry, dear. Everyone knows Alessandro doesn't bring women to events unless they mean something. Grace froze. Mean something? Her. Before she could respond, a firm hand wrapped around her waist from behind. Alessandro, he pulled her back against him subtly, but possessively. We're leaving this conversation, he said coldly. The couple stepped back immediately, intimidated. Grace looked up at him embarrassed. I was trying to be polite. You don't owe anyone here politeness, he replied. If someone approaches you, you come find me. That's not realistic in a room full of... It is, he interrupted. If I'm not beside you, you wait until I am. His tone wasn't harsh. It was protective. Too protective. Grace nodded, though confusion twisted inside her. Alessandro led her to the dance floor as the music softened. The lights dimmed, and couples moved toward the center. He stopped in front of her, extending his hand. Dance with me. Grace stared at his hand. I don't know how. Not like this. You'll learn in 10 seconds. She hesitated, but placed her hand in his. He guided her gently to the center of the dance floor. His other hand settled on her waist, warm through the fabric of her dress. Their bodies drew closer than she expected. Her breath hitched. He leaned in just enough for only her to hear. "Don't look around. Look at me." So she did. And suddenly the room blurred. He moved with certainty, leading her with minimal effort. She followed, trusting his rhythm, letting him guide her through the crowd of spinning lights and judging eyes. "See?" he said quietly. "You're fine." "I'm shaking." "I know." The honesty in his voice surprised her. "You're not used to people looking at you," he continued, "but they're not looking at you the way you think." "How then?" she asked. He stared at her for a long second. "They're wondering how I found someone who doesn't belong to this world." Grace felt that in her bones. "Is that good or bad?" she whispered. "For me?" Alessandro said slowly. "It's dangerous." Her lips parted, confused. "Dangerous?" But before he could answer, Grace noticed something over his shoulder. A man, standing alone by the bar, watching her. He wasn't drinking. He wasn't talking. He wasn't even pretending to be there for the wedding. He just stared, not with curiosity, but with recognition. Her chest tightened. Her breath stopped. It couldn't be. No, not here. Not tonight. Alessandro instantly felt the shift in her body. His hand tightened on her waist. "What is it?" Grace swallowed hard. I think someone is looking at me." "Everyone is looking at you." "Not like this," she whispered, terrified. Alessandro turned subtly, scanning the room with trained precision. His eyes locked onto the man near the bar. Grace felt the air freeze. "Who is he?" Alessandro asked, voice dropping to a dangerous low. Grace's voice trembled. "I don't know his name, but I've seen him before." "Where?" Grace looked at him, panic rising. "From the life I was trying to run from." Alessandro's jaw clenched. He didn't finish the dance. He didn't say goodbye. He didn't wait. He took her hand, led her off the dance floor, and signaled Ethan with a sharp look. Ethan moved instantly. Grace felt her legs shaking. "Alessandro, I'm scared." He didn't hide his expression now. His eyes were fire. "You're with me," he said, "and if that man is connected to your past—" He took a breath, steady but furious. "Then we have a much bigger problem than gossip." Grace's heart sank. "Who is he?" Alessandro pressed. She looked down, terrified. "I think he works for Tyler Hayes." Alessandro stopped walking. His entire body went still. Grace had never seen him freeze like that, not even in the mansion when he dealt with dangerous men. He turned his head slowly, eyes burning with something dark and lethal. "Grace," he said quietly. "Yes?" "If Tyler is watching you." He swallowed the last part of the sentence, too controlled to let emotion slip through. But she heard the fear anyway. Then tonight just became a trap. Grace felt her knees weaken, and Alessandro whispered, "We're leaving. Now." The moment Alessandro decided to leave the wedding, everything changed. Ethan moved instantly, clearing a path while Grace followed Alessandro's steps as closely as she could. Her red dress brushed the floor with every hurried movement, and she kept looking over her shoulder, terrified that the man from the bar would appear again. Alessandro reached the hallway and grabbed her hand, pulling her sharply into a quieter corner near the service exit. "Grace," he said, voice low, jaw tight. "Look at me." She forced herself to meet his eyes. "When you saw that man," he continued, "you froze. Why?" Her throat tightened. "Because I know the type of men Tyler keeps around." "That wasn't my question," he said. "I asked why you froze." Grace swallowed. "Because I've seen him before." Alessandro's eyes darkened, a storm building behind them. "Where?" Her lips trembled. She didn't want to say it here, not with people walking past them, not with the chandelier lights flickering, not with Alessandro staring at her like the truth could decide the rest of his life. "I can't talk here," she whispered. He nodded once, grabbed her hand even harder and pushed open the side door. The cold air hit her skin immediately. Black SUVs were already moving into position. Ethan opened the rear door without waiting. "In," Alessandro ordered. Grace climbed in, her heart racing. Alessandro slid right beside her, shutting the door with force. The SUV pulled away fast. Inside, the silence was crushing. City lights flashed by the windows. Grace stared out, trying not to cry. Alessandro stared at her profile, studying every reaction. After a full minute, he finally spoke. "Grace." "Yes?" "Tell me what you're running from." Her breath stuttered. Not yet. She wasn't ready. She had spent years hiding this. Years surviving by silence. "Alessandro, please." He leaned forward, his eyes locked on hers. "You think I'm asking for curiosity?" He said quietly. "Grace, that man at the bar wasn't drinking. He wasn't socializing. He was watching you, studying you, reporting to someone." She closed her eyes. She knew exactly who. "Is it Tyler Hayes?" He pressed. Her hands shook. "Yes," she finally whispered. "He's connected to him." Alessandro's jaw clenched so hard she thought he might crack a tooth. "I knew Hayes was moving more lately," he muttered. "But I didn't expect him to show his face at a family wedding." "He wasn't alone," Grace said, voice shrinking. "If he sent that man, Tyler knows where I am." Alessandro froze. For a full second he didn't blink, didn't breathe, didn't move. Then he turned to Ethan. "Drive faster." "Yes, boss." When he looked back at Grace, his face had changed. Not anger, not frustration. Something darker. "Grace," he said quietly, "I need the truth. All of it. Now." When they finally reached the mansion, Alessandro didn't wait. He escorted her inside through a private entrance. No staff, no guests, no one around. He guided her into his private office, a room she had never entered before. Dark walls, a massive desk, bookshelves, a panoramic window overlooking the city. He shut the door behind them. Grace stood in the center of the room, feeling small under his gaze. Alessandro stayed near the door for a moment, one hand on the handle. He took a slow breath, like he was containing something violent inside. "Sit," he said. She sat. Alessandro walked around the desk, slowly, deliberately, and leaned forward, placing both hands on the polished surface. His eyes didn't leave her. "Start talking." Grace clasped her hands together, trying to stop them from shaking. "I moved here 2 years ago," she said carefully. "I changed cities, jobs, everything. I was trying to disappear." "Disappear from who?" he asked. "Tyler." Alessandro's jaw tightened again. Grace continued. "I wasn't involved with him, not romantically, nothing like that." She rushed the explanation. "I didn't know who he was at first. He approached me when I worked at a small cafe. He was charming, confident, generous. I didn't see the danger at first." Alessandro's expression didn't change, but his hands curled into fists. "One night," Grace whispered, "I stayed late to close the cafe, and I saw something I shouldn't have." "What did you see?" Alessandro asked. Grace took a shaky breath. "Tyler and 2 men were in the alley behind the cafe. They were hurting someone. I don't know who he was, but I saw Tyler's face. I heard him. I saw everything." Alessandro's eyes narrowed slowly. Grace looked away. "They didn't see me, but someone yelled and I panicked. I ran home." The next morning, the police showed up at the cafe, asking questions. "And Tyler?" Alessandro asked. "Tyler confronted me 2 days later," she said quietly. "He wanted to know what I saw. He wanted to know if I talked. I told him I didn't, but he didn't believe me." Alessandro exhaled through his nose, furious but controlled. "He started following me," Grace continued, "calling me, showing up at my building. I moved apartments twice. Then I left the city completely." "And you thought running would be enough?" Grace nodded, ashamed. "I thought if I disappeared, he'd forget. I took the job at your mansion because it was stable and far away from everything. I wanted peace." Alessandro leaned back slowly, hands gripping the armrests of his chair. "Grace," he said, his voice harder now, Tyler Hayes doesn't forget. Tears gathered at the corners of her eyes. I know. And you kept all of this from me, he continued. I was afraid, she whispered. Of me? He asked, sharply. She looked down. No, I was afraid of bringing trouble to your home, to your people, to you. Alessandro stared at her for several long seconds. Then, unexpectedly, he stood. He rounded the desk. Grace's breath caught when he stopped directly in front of her. Stand up, he said softly. Grace rose slowly, her legs trembling. He reached out and gently lifted her chin, forcing her to meet his eyes. You think your past makes you dangerous to me? He asked. She didn't answer. You think Tyler Hayes scares me? He continued. She remained silent. His voice dropped lower, more intense. Grace, there is nothing you could tell me that would make me walk away. She blinked, tears escaping. And you should have told me, he said, not because I'm angry, but because I could have protected you sooner. She sobbed quietly, covering her mouth. He lowered his hand to her waist, not pulling her close, just grounding her. No more secrets, he said. Not from me. Grace nodded helplessly. Alessandro stepped even closer. His breath touched her cheek. His presence surrounded her completely. You're in my world now, he said. And in my world, we don't run from threats. Her heart raced. We eliminate them. Grace looked up at him, shocked. You mean... Alessandro said, brushing a tear from her cheek. Tyler Hayes made the mistake of putting his eyes on you. He leaned in just a little, not touching her lips, but close enough to make her breath shake. And now he'll answer to me. Grace inhaled sharply. Alessandro. He placed a fingertip on her lips. No, he said softly. You don't apologize. You don't blame yourself. You survived something terrible. You did everything alone. But you're not alone anymore. She broke into quiet tears, overwhelmed. Alessandro's hand slid to the back of her neck, his touch gentle but commanding. You're safe with me, he said. I'm not letting him near you. Ever. She believed him. Completely. But fear still lingered in her voice when she whispered, what if he doesn't stop? What if he tries again? Alessandro's expression darkened with a promise she had never seen before. Then I'll deal with him, he said. Personally. Grace's breath trembled. For the first time in years, she felt protected. Really protected. But that didn't stop the fear growing inside her as she realized something else. Tyler Hayes wouldn't back down easily. And Alessandro Zanetti wasn't a man who walked away from a fight. Their worlds were about to collide. Hard. And Grace wasn't sure if the explosion would destroy Tyler or destroy Alessandro. The next morning, the mansion did not feel the same. Security moved differently. Voices were lower. Doors stayed closed. Grace noticed it the moment she stepped into the hallway outside the staff rooms. 2 new guards were posted at the end of the corridor. They scanned her carefully before relaxing. Morning, Ms. Miller, one of them said. No one had ever called her that before. Good morning, she answered, still unsure how to behave in this new version of her life. She walked toward the kitchen, feeling eyes on her. The other staff members stared, then quickly looked away. Some of them pretended to be busy. Others whispered behind cupboard doors. Grace felt heat rise to her cheeks. Everyone knew. They knew she had gone to the wedding on Alessandro's arm. They knew he had left early because of something that involved her. They knew security had changed because of her. The guilt sat heavy in her chest. She reached the kitchen and stopped short. The head housekeeper, Helen, stood by the counter talking to one of the younger maids. They both fell silent when Grace entered. Helen forced a polite smile. Grace, you're up early. Just wanted to help with breakfast, Grace said quietly. Helen nodded, but her eyes were different, cautious. Alessandro left orders. You're not on cleaning duty anymore. Grace frowned. What? Why? Ask him, Helen replied carefully. But he told us you are not to work in the guest areas. You stay in the house, but under his Supervision. Grace's heart sank. So now she was not really staff. Not really a guest. Not really anything. A security guard appeared in the doorway. "Ms. Miller," he said, "the boss wants to see you in his office." Grace's stomach twisted. "Now?" "Okay," she said, wiping her hands on a towel even though she hadn't done anything yet. She followed the guard through the halls, her steps echoing on the polished floors. The mansion, once big and familiar in a distant way, now felt smaller and heavier, like the walls were listening. When they reached Alessandro's office, the guard opened the door and stepped aside. Alessandro stood near the window, suit jacket off, sleeves rolled up, staring out at the city. Ethan sat on the edge of the desk, arms crossed, phone in hand. They both turned as she entered. "Sit," Alessandro said. His voice was calm, but something in the room felt tight. Grace sat in the same chair as the night before, her hands folded in her lap, nerves on edge. Ethan gave her a small nod. "Morning, Grace." "Good morning," she answered. Alessandro walked away from the window and leaned on the desk, arms braced on either side of him. "We got a message from Tyler," he said. Grace's heart dropped. "How?" she asked. Ethan tapped his phone. "Through one of the safe numbers. He wanted to make sure we knew it was him." "What did he say?" Grace whispered. Alessandro's eyes locked onto hers. "He wants a meeting." Her blood turned cold. "A meeting with who?" she asked, even though she already knew the answer. "With me," Alessandro replied, "and he made it obvious the meeting is about you." Grace felt lightheaded. "I'm so sorry." "Don't start," Alessandro cut in. "I told you. You don't apologize for surviving him." She bit her lip, tears stinging her eyes. Ethan stepped in. "He didn't threaten you directly in the message. Not by name. But he made it clear he knows where you are, Grace." She swallowed hard. "So he's watching the house?" "Probably," Alessandro said, "but he won't get close." Grace shook her head slowly. "He always finds a way. He did before. Every time I moved, he appeared again." "He was tracking you," Ethan said. "But you were alone then. You're not alone now." Alessandro straightened up. "He wants to meet tonight. Neutral ground. A closed club downtown." "Are you going?" Grace asked. "Yes." Her chest tightened painfully. "What if it's a trap?" He almost smiled, but it wasn't a happy smile. "It is a trap, but I've walked into traps before and walked out. That doesn't mean—" "Grace," he said firmly, "this is not optional. He crossed a line showing his face at my brother's wedding. If I ignore it, he thinks he can move closer. I won't let that happen." She stared down at her hands. "Because of your business?" "Because of you," he said. Her breath stopped. She looked up slowly, eyes wide. "For me?" Alessandro held her gaze. "Tyler targeted you. That makes it personal." Her heart did something painful and warm at the same time. "You still don't understand," she said quietly. "Tyler doesn't forgive. He doesn't let go. If he knows you're protecting me, he won't stop." "And I don't stop either," Alessandro replied. Silence settled between them. Ethan cleared his throat. "We need more details from you, Grace. Anything you remember beyond what you already told us. Names, places, random words. It doesn't matter how small it sounds. Small things have value." She nodded nervously. "I can try." "For now," Alessandro said, "you don't leave this house. Not the garden, not the gate. Nowhere. You move with security if you need anything." "I can't work like this," she whispered. "You're not working," he said. She stared at him. "What do you mean?" He looked almost annoyed that he had to explain. "You're not staff anymore. You're under my protection." "That comes first." Grace froze. The words hit harder than she expected. Not staff, not invisible. "What am I then?" she asked, voice barely audible. He held her gaze steadily. "Important enough to cause a war," he said. "That's what you are." Hours passed slowly. Grace stayed in a guest room closer to Alessandro's wing, like he had ordered. One of the guards stood outside the door at all times. She sat on the edge of the bed, still in simple clothes now that the dress was gone, hair tied back again. The contrast between last night and today felt almost unreal. A knock sounded at the door. "Come in," she said. Alessandro entered, alone. He closed the door behind him, and the guard stayed in the hallway. Grace stood up immediately. "Did something happen?" she asked. He shook his head once. "I leave in an hour." "For the meeting?" she asked. "Yes." Her heart hammered harder. She stepped closer without thinking. "Are you sure you should go?" "Yes," he said simply. "What if he tries something?" "He will try something," Alessandro said. "That's the point. I want him to show part of his hand." She wrapped her arms around herself as if trying to hold her body together. I've never been good for anyone," she admitted, eyes on the floor. "Every time someone tried to help me, things got worse for them. The cafe owner lost his business after the night I saw what I saw. My neighbor's car was vandalized. People around me always paid the price." "And you think I'll be next?" Alessandro asked. Her voice shook. "I don't want that." He stepped closer. "Grace, look at me." She did. His eyes were intense, but there was something else there now, something softer, hidden beneath all the control and power. "You are not a curse," he said. "The problem is not you. The problem is the men who chose to hurt you." Her eyes filled with tears again. "I don't know how to live without being scared," she admitted. He reached out and slowly took her hand. "Then let me be scared for you," he said. Her lips parted, shock and emotion mixing inside her. He squeezed her fingers gently. "You don't have to carry everything alone anymore. Not your past. Not your fear. Not this." She swallowed hard. "What if this destroys you?" He almost smiled again, but it was sad this time. "People have tried to destroy me for years. I'm still here. But this is different," she insisted. "He will use what I know against you. And I'll use what you know against him," Alessandro said. "That's the difference between us. He sees you as a problem. I see you as an advantage." She blinked. "Advantage? You saw things no one else saw," he explained. "You heard things, remembered details. That makes you dangerous to him. And very useful to me." She felt a strange mix of pride and fear. "I don't want to be just useful," she said quietly. He studied her face. "You're not," he said. Her heart jumped. Before she could respond, a voice called from the hall. "Boss," Ethan said through the door. "We're ready when you are." Alessandro didn't look away from her. He lifted her hand to his lips and pressed a brief kiss to her knuckles. It was not romantic in a soft way. It was firm, deliberate, a promise. "I'll be back," he said. Grace's chest burned. "Please," she whispered. "Be careful." He let go of her hand slowly and stepped back, putting some distance between them again. The wall was back up, but she had seen behind it for a second. "I don't take stupid risks," he said. "If I die, it won't be tonight." The words were dark, but the tone was steady. He opened the door and walked out. The guard closed it again. Grace stood in the center of the room, hand still warm from his kiss, listening as the sound of footsteps moved away down the hall. A heavy weight settled in her chest. She was not the one who had asked for this war, but she knew she had become the reason for it. The meeting place was a closed nightclub in a rougher area downtown. The lights were off, only the neon sign outside glowed dimly. Ethan drove. 2 additional cars followed. Inside the club, Alessandro walked slowly across the empty dance floor, his shoes echoing on the polished surface. Tables were stacked along the walls. The bar was lit with a single lamp. Tyler Hayes stood near it, wearing a dark jacket, a lazy smile on his face. "Alessandro Zanetti," Tyler said, spreading his arms. "I'm honored. You don't usually come when you're summoned." "I wasn't summoned," Alessandro replied. "I came because you made a mistake." Tyler laughed. "Let me guess. The wedding?" "You stepped into my family's space," Alessandro said. You watched someone I was with. That doesn't happen without consequences. Tyler tilted his head. Interesting choice of words. Someone I was with. Is that what she is to you? Someone? Ethan shifted his weight behind Alessandro, ready for anything. Yes, Alessandro said sharply. Someone under my protection. Tyler's smile faded slightly. So it's true, he said. The maid has your attention. Alessandro's eyes narrowed. You said you had something to talk about. Say it. Tyler took a slow sip from a glass on the bar, then set it down carefully. Grace Miller saw something she wasn't supposed to, he began. I've spent a long time cleaning up that problem. She's very good at slipping away. Alessandro didn't react. But she made one mistake, Tyler continued. She hid in your house. Alessandro's jaw clenched, but his voice stayed calm. You think that was a mistake? Tyler grinned. For you, yes. Because now you have something that belongs to me. She doesn't belong to you, Alessandro said. She does if she can drag me into a courtroom, Tyler replied coldly. She's evidence. As long as she breathes, I have a problem. So that's what this is, Alessandro said. You want her dead. Tyler shrugged. I'd prefer she vanish quietly. But whatever works. Ethan shifted again, anger obvious now. And you thought telling me that would convince me to hand her over? Alessandro asked. Tyler's eyes gleamed with something cruel. No, he said. I thought showing you what else I have might convince you. He nodded toward a man standing in the shadows. The man stepped forward, holding a thin folder. Tyler took it and opened it, flipping through the pages. I did some digging while I looked for her, he explained. Turns out our pretty witness has been closer to your world than you think. I followed her steps. I followed yours. I gathered secrets. He pulled out a photo and held it up. Not of Grace, of Alessandro. Walking out of a warehouse with a man whose face the law would love to see. Ethan stiffened. Tyler smirked. You see, Alessandro, if I go down because some maid points a finger at me, I won't go alone. I have enough here to make some very powerful people question you. Investigations, raids, frozen accounts, broken alliances. He tossed the photo on the bar. So here's my offer, Tyler said. You hand over the girl. Or you step aside and let me take care of her quietly. In exchange, I keep my mouth shut. Your world stays intact. The silence after his words was heavy. Alessandro's face didn't change, but Ethan knew that, inside, calculations were happening. If I refuse? Alessandro asked. Tyler's smile returned. Then I start talking, he said. And maybe I don't walk out of here today. Maybe you kill me. But the things I've prepared won't disappear with me. People will receive files, names, photos. Yours included. Alessandro watched him intently. And Grace? He asked. Tyler's eyes turned cold. She loses everything first. The air in the club felt thinner. Ethan glanced at Alessandro, waiting for the answer. Alessandro stepped closer to the bar, his gaze fixed on Tyler. You're right about one thing, he said calmly. Grace is a problem for you. Tyler nodded slowly. Exactly. But you're wrong about everything else, Alessandro continued. Tyler frowned. You think I built my life without preparing for snakes like you? Alessandro asked. You think I don't have my own insurance? You think you're the only one who knows how to hide evidence? Tyler's eyes narrowed. I don't bend to threats, Alessandro said. And I don't trade innocent lives for my comfort. Innocent? Tyler scoffed. She's a liability. To you, Alessandro said. To me, she's under my protection. And you're willing to lose everything for her? Tyler asked. Alessandro's jaw flexed. If it comes to that, he said, voice hard, then yes. Tyler stared at him for a long moment. Then he laughed. You're losing your edge, Zanetti, all because of a girl in a red dress. Careful, Alessandro warned. The last man who underestimated a woman near me isn't around anymore. Tyler's smile faded. The air changed. No one moved. No one blinked. Finally, Tyler stepped back, raising his hands. "Fine," he said. "Protect her. See how long you can keep her breathing." He turned away, then looked back over his shoulder. "But remember this," he added. "She's the reason your enemies will come for you harder than ever. And when they do, ask yourself if she was worth it." He left the bar area and walked toward the exit with his men. Ethan waited until he was gone, then turned to Alessandro. "That went well," Ethan said dryly. Alessandro ignored the comment. "Have our people trace any moves he makes in the next 24 hours, he ordered. "Bank transfers, calls, meetings. I want eyes everywhere." "On it," Ethan said. Alessandro exhaled slowly. He picked up the photo Tyler had thrown on the bar and stared at it. There were many ways this could unfold. None of them were simple. Some of them were deadly. "Boss," Ethan asked quietly, "was it true? What you said? You'd risk everything for her?" Alessandro didn't look at him. He thought of Grace sitting in the guest room. He thought of her shaking voice when she said she was tired of being scared. He thought of her tears on his fingers, her hand in his, the way she had walked beside him in red, under all those judging eyes. "Yes," he said finally. "It was true." Ethan nodded slowly. "In that case," he said, "we're already at war." Alessandro's eyes hardened with resolve. "Then we make sure we win," he said. "And we make sure she never knows how close she came to losing everything." He dropped the photo back on the bar. But one question followed him all the way back to the car, stayed with him during the ride, and burned in his mind as the mansion came into view. If he chose Grace over safety, over silence, over his kingdom, would he still be standing when this was over? Or would loving the wrong woman be the one thing that finally brought Alessandro Zanetti to his knees? Alessandro didn't return to the mansion until late at night. Grace waited in the room he had given her, sitting on the edge of the bed with her knees pulled close. She had tried to sleep. She had tried to distract herself. She failed both times. Every second felt like a weight pressing against her chest. When the door finally opened, she jumped to her feet. Alessandro stepped in, closing the door behind him. He didn't turn on the overhead light, just the warm lamp on the dresser. It filled the room with a soft glow that softened the sharp lines of his face. He looked exhausted, but alive. Grace felt relief rush through her so fast her knees gave out. She sat again, trembling. "You're back," she whispered. "I told you I would be," he said, removing his jacket and tossing it on the chair. "How did it go?" she asked. He loosened his tie. "Bad, but expected." Grace swallowed hard. "Did he threaten me?" "Indirectly," Alessandro said. "And directly. Hayes made it clear he wants you silenced." Grace looked down at her hands. "I knew he wouldn't stop. And I made it clear that I won't give you up," Alessandro replied. Her heart stopped, then beat harder. He sat beside her, leaning forward with his elbows on his knees. "Grace, my world is changing faster than I anticipated. Today Hayes pushed a boundary. Tomorrow others will test me too. Because of me," she whispered. "No," he said sharply. "Because of him. Because he thinks he can scare me." She met his gaze, unsure how to feel. "You shouldn't risk your entire life for me," she said softly. "You have family, a business, power, a world that doesn't include me." His jaw clenched. "Grace, that world doesn't matter if I can't protect someone standing right in front of me." She exhaled shakily. His words hit somewhere deep and unprotected. Before she could respond, Alessandro stood abruptly. "I need to make calls," he said. "Security arrangements. Movement plans. We won't be caught off guard." He moved toward the door, but Grace stood too. "Wait." He turned. She stepped closer, nervous but determined. "Alessandro," she murmured, "I don't want to hide while you fight alone." "Grace, I mean it." He stared at her, eyes hardening in frustration. "And I mean it too," he said. "You don't walk into this war. I do. But I'm the reason. You are not the reason." he repeated slowly. Hayes was always going to come after me eventually. You didn't create this conflict. She shook her head. I can help you. No. You don't even know what I remember, she insisted. I might know something important. He stepped forward, his presence overwhelming. You helped me by staying alive, he said. That's the only thing that matters. Grace's breath shook. Why do you care so much? She asked, voice barely above a whisper. Something flickered in his eyes, something he wasn't ready to admit. Something he had been pushing away since the moment he saw her in that red dress. He didn't answer, not yet. Instead, he walked toward the door and paused. Lock this after I leave, he said softly. I'll be back. Grace nodded, but her heart ached as he stepped out. Because she knew one thing now. Whatever was happening was no longer just about safety. It was personal. The following days were tense. Security doubled inside the mansion. New cameras were installed. Patrol cars circled the property every hour. Grace moved between her room, the kitchen, and Alessandro's office, always accompanied by a guard. Every time she passed a window, she checked twice for any unfamiliar car on the road. But the worst part was Alessandro. He was different. He wasn't cold with her. He wasn't distant. He was protective. Too protective. If another man spoke to Grace, Alessandro watched. If a guard walked her through the hallway, Alessandro asked which one. If she went to the kitchen alone, he appeared minutes later, checking on something. It wasn't possessiveness, it was fear. Fear of losing something he didn't know how to name yet. One night, as Grace walked toward the library with a guard behind her, she overheard Alessandro speaking sharply in his office. She stopped without meaning to. Ethan's voice came first. She didn't ask for any of this, boss. I know. Alessandro muttered. Then why don't you step back? Ethan pressed. Silence. I can't, Alessandro finally said. Why? Ethan asked. A long, heavy pause. Grace pressed her hand against her mouth to stop her breath from shaking. Because, Alessandro said low and tense, every time she looks at me, I feel like I could actually be someone else. Grace's heart slammed into her ribs. Ethan exhaled. And that scares you? She scares me, Alessandro said, because she makes me want things I should never want. Grace felt her knees tremble. She had to walk away before he noticed her. She hurried down the hall, her emotions spinning. He wasn't supposed to feel anything. He wasn't supposed to care. He wasn't supposed to... Grace? She froze. Alessandro stepped into the hallway, eyes narrowing. What are you doing here? He asked. She tried to steady her voice. I was just going to the library. You look pale, he said, stepping closer. Did something happen? No, she lied, forcing a smile. Just tired. He studied her carefully, but let it go. Come with me, he said. There's something I need to tell you. He led her into the living room where the fire crackled softly. The atmosphere was warm, but his face was serious. Grace sat on the couch. Alessandro remained standing. Today, he began. One of my men was attacked. Grace's eyes widened. Attacked? By who? Hayes's people, Alessandro replied. They wanted information. But how did they find him? Alessandro hesitated. Grace felt dread crawl up her spine. What aren't you telling me? She whispered. Alessandro exhaled slowly and sat beside her. Grace, there's a traitor inside my crew. Her breathing faltered. A traitor? In your own house? We don't know who yet, he said. But someone is giving Hayes small pieces of information. Not enough to hurt us, but enough to follow patterns. Grace's voice trembled. And this person knows about me? Maybe, Alessandro admitted. Which is why you're not staying alone tonight. Her heart skipped. You mean? Yes, he said. You stay in my room, where I know you're safe. Grace flushed instantly. I can't do that. It's inappropriate. This is not about propriety, he said. It's about keeping you alive. I don't want to be a burden, she whispered. He leaned in, jaw tense. You're not a burden. You're the only thing in this house I can't replace. Her lips parted. A rush of warmth moved through her chest. Alessandro continued. I can rebuild a crew. I can replace a soldier. I can shut down a business. But if Hayes takes you... He paused, breathing hard. I can't replace that. Grace felt tears well up. And that scares you, she said quietly. He didn't deny it. Instead, he ran a hand through his hair, frustrated with himself. I don't do feelings, Grace. You deserve someone better than a man like me. She stepped closer, her voice barely a whisper. You protect me. You listen to me. You believe me, and you fight for me. That's not something I've ever had. His eyes softened. Grace, he murmured. I can't promise you a safe life. I can't promise that my future isn't a storm. But I can promise one thing. She waited, breath tight. I will never let anyone hurt you again, he said. Not Tyler, not my enemies, not even myself. Her chest ached in a way she couldn't explain. She took a shaky breath. I believe you. He reached out slowly and brushed a tear from her cheek. His fingers lingered a second too long. Her breath hitched. Their faces were close. Too close. But before either of them could move, a loud bang echoed outside. They both turned sharply. Ethan burst through the door. Boss, he said urgently. We have a problem. Alessandro stood instantly. What happened? One of the cars patrolling the perimeter was hit, Ethan said. Not badly, but Hayes left a message. Grace's heart dropped. A message? Alessandro asked. Ethan nodded and handed him a small card. Alessandro read it, his expression darkening. Grace swallowed. What does it say? Alessandro's eyes lifted slowly to hers. It says, he read aloud, I know what she saw, and I know what you're willing to lose for her. Grace's hands shook. He's coming for me, she whispered. No, Alessandro said firmly, gripping her shoulders. He's coming for us. For us? She repeated. Yes, he said. This isn't your war anymore. It's ours. Before she could fully process the words, Alessandro turned to Ethan. It's time, he said. For what? Ethan asked. To end this, Alessandro replied, once and for all. Ethan nodded, understanding. Grace looked between them, breath uneven. Alessandro, what are you going to do? He turned back to her, eyes steady, voice deep. I'm going to walk into the fire, he said, because that's the only way to make sure you walk out unharmed. But as he pulled her close and she felt the tremor beneath his controlled exterior, one terrifying thought took hold. If he goes into this war for her, would he come back the same man? Or would loving her be the one battle he couldn't win? Everything happened in motion. After Ethan delivered Tyler's message, Alessandro didn't hesitate. He gave orders faster than anyone could question. Prepare the convoy, he said. Check every weapon. No one leaves the gates without my approval. And Grace stays with me, always. She stood in the living room, heart pounding, watching the controlled chaos unfold around her. Guards moved. Phones rang. Ethan barked orders. Maps were laid out. Routes were checked. The mansion felt like a war room. And at the center of it all, Alessandro Zanetti. Calm, focused, dangerous. When he finally turned to her, everything around them went quiet. Grace, he said, stepping close. We do this together. But you listen to me, and you don't argue. Understood? She nodded, throat tight. Yes. He cupped her cheek briefly, thumb brushing her skin. Good, he whispered. Tyler wanted a war. He was getting one. Inside Alessandro's office, Ethan placed a laptop on the table with surveillance footage, audio logs, and a list of Tyler's known locations. We know his people are hiding out at a warehouse near the river, Ethan said. Abandoned docks, no cameras. Perfect for dirty business. Perfect for finishing this, Alessandro replied. Boss, we don't know how many of them there are, another guard warned. We'll find out, Alessandro said. We adapt. Grace stood by the wall, arms tense. Why do I need to be there? She asked. I don't want to stand between you and danger. Alessandro turned to her. You're not between me and danger, he said softly. You're the reason I'm walking into it. Her heart squeezed. But that's exactly what terrifies me, she whispered. He approached her slowly, until their faces were inches apart. I don't lose what's mine, he said quietly. Grace's breath hitched. Am I? She couldn't finish. A muscle in his jaw twitched. Yes, he said. You are. Heat flooded her chest. He took her hand. Stay close to me tonight. That's all I ask. She nodded shakily. I will. Hours later, 3 SUVs rolled out of the mansion. Grace sat between Alessandro and Ethan in the back seat. The city lights flickered against the windows as they approached the docks. Alessandro held her hand the entire ride. Not possessively, not for control, to reassure her, to reassure himself. The docks appeared in the distance, dark, cold, empty. Ethan leaned forward. We have movement. 2 men by the entrance. Armed? Alessandro asked. Probably. Good. Alessandro stepped out first, scanning the shadows. Grace stepped out behind him, her legs shaking. Stay right behind me, he murmured. The warehouse door creaked open, and Tyler Hayes walked out, smiling. He spread his arms. Well, Zanetti, and the princess of the evening. Alessandro blocked Grace instantly with his arm. Say one more thing about her, he growled, and I'll end this right now. Tyler smirked. Touchy. You know, I didn't expect such loyalty from you. You don't strike me as the kind of man who risks his empire for a girl. She's not a girl, Alessandro snapped. She's the only honest person in this entire street. Tyler laughed. Honest? She ran from me, lied, hid, watched things she shouldn't. She survived you, Alessandro corrected. Tyler's eyes flickered with annoyance. He motioned to a man behind him. The man stepped forward, holding something in his hands. A phone. Tyler pressed play. A recording echoed through the cold air. A voice, Grace's voice, trembling, scared, whispering into a phone in a small apartment years ago. He's following me. He hurt someone behind the cafe. He won't stop looking for me. I don't know what to do. Grace covered her mouth, horrified. Alessandro froze. Tyler tilted his head. She panicked. She left evidence, and that evidence belongs to me. Shut it off, Alessandro ordered. Tyler smirked but obeyed. You see, he continued, she's dangerous. To me, to you. If she talks, she ruins you. If she dies, she ruins me. We're both stuck. No, Alessandro said, pulling Grace closer. The only one stuck is you. Tyler chuckled. How do you figure? Because she's under my protection, Alessandro said, which means touching her is touching me, and that's the last mistake you'd ever make. Tyler's smile faded. So what now? He asked. You kill me? You walk away? You pretend she's not a threat? No, Alessandro said. We end this in a way you didn't expect. Grace looked up at him, confused. Alessandro reached into his jacket and pulled out. Not a weapon. Not evidence. But his phone. He showed Tyler the screen. A video. Tyler frowned. What's that? Your mistake, Alessandro said. On the screen, security footage played. Tyler himself, 2 years ago, in the cafe alley. The assault. The threats. The crime Grace witnessed. Tyler's face went pale. How did you? You were sloppy, Alessandro said. And I collect things too. Tyler's voice cracked. Delete it. No. You want to trade? Tyler spat. You give me Grace, I give you silence. Alessandro stepped forward. No, he said. I give you a choice. Tyler blinked. You walk away. Alessandro continued. Leave this city, leave her alone forever, and I let you breathe. Tyler scoffed. And if I don't? Alessandro smiled without humor. Then I send this video to the police, the FBI, every prosecutor in the state, and you'll spend the rest of your life explaining why you almost killed a man behind a cafe. Tyler opened his mouth, but no words came out. He wasn't used to losing. Choose, Alessandro said. The seconds dragged. Finally, Tyler's shoulders slumped. You win, he muttered. I'll leave. Alessandro nodded once. Go. Tyler glared at Grace one last time but didn't speak. He turned and walked back into the warehouse with his men. Ethan exhaled loudly behind them. That's it? Grace whispered. It's over? Alessandro looked down at her. No, he said softly. Now it's my turn. Back at the mansion, Grace felt exhausted and shaky. She could barely stand when they reached the living room. Alessandro turned to her. You're safe, he said. Because of you, she whispered. He shook his head. No, because you survived long enough for me to find you. Grace felt tears burning her eyes. You shouldn't risk everything for someone like me. He stepped closer, voice low. I didn't risk everything, he said. I chose what mattered. She blinked. What matters? You, he said. Her heart stopped. He cupped her face gently, searching her expression. You walked into that wedding in red, he murmured. And I swear, Grace, I haven't been the same since. Her breath caught. You were the only person who never wanted anything from me. You didn't look at my world with greed. You looked at me with fear and honesty. And that's the moment I realized, he swallowed, that I wanted to protect you, even if it cost me everything. Grace's tears fell silently. I don't know what to say, she whispered. Say you're not leaving, he murmured. She took a shaky breath. I'm not leaving. His forehead touched hers gently. And say you're mine, he said softly, voice trembling in a way she had never heard from him. Grace lifted her hands to his chest. I've been yours, she whispered, from the moment you walked into that kitchen. His breath hitched. He pulled her into his arms, holding her like she was the first real thing he had ever touched. Grace clung to him, the fear and tension melting out of her body. She felt safe for the first time in years, truly safe. After a long moment, Alessandro pulled back enough to look at her. Grace Miller, he said, you came to a wedding as my date. She smiled weakly through her tears and shocked everyone. He brushed a strand of hair behind her ear. You shocked me too, he admitted. Her heart swelled. Good, she whispered. Then we're even. He smiled, a real, genuine smile, and kissed her forehead. As he guided her toward his room, his hand in hers, she realized something. She had survived. She had fought. And she had found someone who fought for her too. She wasn't the maid he chose for convenience. She was the woman he chose for everything. Grace looked up at him, her fingers intertwined with his. Alessandro, she whispered. What happens now? He opened the door to his room and pulled her inside. Now, he said softly, I show you what forever looks like. And as the door closed, the world outside finally quieted. The danger was gone. The fear was gone. The past was gone. Only the future remained. A future where the maid in the red dress wasn't just the Mafia boss's date. She was his forever. If you enjoy stories like this, take a moment to subscribe to the channel. That's how I'll know you truly liked it. Even if you're watching on your TV, grab a second to join this family of fans who love emotional and heartfelt stories. Your support means everything, and it helps us bring you even more tales like this one.